Alright, now before we go on, we should talk about why do we use the twist stance in the first place. There is a lot of reasons for using a twist stance. Now the first and most obvious thing is, well, a twist stance allows you to rotate in place. Essentially, if you had your right arm forward, you can rotate in place and now have your left arm forward without switching your feet. Alright? It allows your rear arm to become your front arm and your front arm to become your rear arm. Alright? Well, if it does that, then logic dictates that it can also do the exact opposite, which means that it can make it so we are not rotating while we are switching our feet. That's the exact opposite. So it sounds strange, but basically you can think about it like a twist stance. It's like a step through that does not rotate. Usually if you did a step through maneuver, your other arm is forward now. Twist stance allows you to do almost a step through. You don't go quite as far because the step is shorter, right? But you never rotated your upper body, right? Now, what else does a twist stance do? Well, it drops in height. We'll talk about how that can be taken advantage of in a variety of different ways. Right? It also sets up, if you are in a twist stance, you can unwind into a neutral bow stance very rapidly. So it can set up that rotation into a neutral bow stance. Right? Or if you don't want to end up in a neutral bow stance, you could use that same rotation and end up using it to drive a kick. Right? You can rotate right into, let's say, a roundhouse kick. We have that in some of our self-defense techniques. Right? And the twist stance, even without rotation, let's say a twist stance stems out of a crossover maneuver or so, it can set up a kick nevertheless. Not rotating into a kick, but just extending out because you have that rear knee that is poised, ready to kick. Right? Then twist stances set up sweeps and buckles. Right? One very famous one and common one that we have is the twist stance can set up the buckle using a reverse bow stance. And now you can say crossovers do that as well, and they do, but they both share this. And then twist stances are also used extensively for concluding a sweep, especially if you have a thrusting sweep kick. Right? Twist stance is a good place to end up in since it is so similar to the motion that you were just engaged in. Right? And allows you to land and collect your balance very quickly after doing a sweep. And the reason why this is a benefit is because you could time a strike with that. Right? You could hit right at the moment of hitting the twist stance. You now have your hands available to strike more forcefully because you're braced. Right? Now, twist stance can also protect your groin. And that's not that easily understood, because really the way it's doing that is not by totally covering your groin, but by taking away the complementary angles that your opponent has in other stances, when you assume other stances. If you're in a neutral bow stance, let's say we're in a right-to-right position, I have my right foot forward, you have your right foot forward, we're both in a right neutral bow stance, right? Either one of us could attempt to do a snap kick, a front kick, or a roundhouse kick, maybe an off-angle roundhouse kick, to the other person's groin. Right? And if we, unless you're blocking it with your hands, there's a good chance we can get that kick in, right? But we need a complementary angle of your legs in order to get our kick in, because our kick is moving upward. Right? If you pivot into a twist stance, you're taking those complementary angles away from your opponent completely. I can no longer travel up your leg and kick you in the groin. I have to come in straight from the front now. That's hard to access. That's not easily done. Sure, I can do it with like a side kick or something, but you notice how a lot of kicks are now eliminated. You're not going to be able to just strike a person in the groin that easily anymore, right? Now, I mentioned a moment ago that a twist stance, can conclude a sweep, a leg sweep, right? And when that happens, not just in that situation, it can also become a stomp. Alright, so a lot of times a twist stance will end up being a stomp. And we have to consider, especially at the more advanced belt level, that oftentimes our opponent is going to be on the ground, and we want to be able to do certain things when he's on the ground, and a stomp is very effective here. Alright. Next, a twist stance can assist breaking a leg. We have this here at brown belt level. You see it also in the long form 6, where we use a twist stance in order to brace the leg on, our opponent's leg on, so we can facilitate a break. It's not really possible to do this with other stances. The twist stance is unique in this aspect. Next, a twist stance can conceal knee strikes or kicks with your back leg. That's also significant because it's almost like you're hiding the first part of a kick, right? If you came from a neutral bow stance and you are going to do a rear leg knee strike, for example, that whole first action of rotating your hips and bringing your knee up, you don't have to do that in a twist stance. You already are rotated. Your knee is already halfway extended forward. All you have to do is let it pass your front leg now and finish that knee strike. It is already much closer to the target, and you've basically already taken the first 30 or 40% of that motion that you would usually need to do a knee strike. You've already passed that before you even started, right? So it is an excellent way of hiding a knee strike or a kick. Next, you can use a twist stance to check with. We have a few different techniques that do this, and it's essentially when you're stepping over stuff. Okay, that's an easy way to think about it. When you're stepping over your opponent's arm or stepping over your opponent's legs, if you did that in a neutral bow stance, you would not be protected, but by doing a twist stance, you are. That twist stance completely locks access. Again, it has to do with complementary angles no longer being available. And then another thing a twist stance can do, even though now we have to modify the stance slightly and put our feet a little bit further apart, that rear knee can be a strike, right? Not just to the front, like we said a moment ago, but it can be a strike downward. You can step over somebody, you can step over a person's body, over a person's head, and drop your rear knee on them as you're planting in a twist stance, right? And like I said a moment ago, yes, this stance is going to have to be slightly modified most of the time, but not much. So the first technique where we're running into a twist stance in the Kenpo system would be on purple belt, and it's a technique against the hammerlock. And it's towards the end of this technique that we have this twist stance. We just finished. We had had grabbed our opponent's arm. We swung the arm over towards our right, so that way it keeps our opponent in check really well. Right? But we're pulling the arm down a little bit, makes it hard for him to kick. He has to adjust. He has to try to catch his balance because we're yanking his arm around. Right? And then we're going to kick him on the inside of his back knee. Right? Now that's going to probably make him sprawl out on the ground almost. He's going to start going down, hopefully. Especially if right after you kick that knee, you pull his arm. Right? Very hard for him to prevent from going down here if you do this correctly. But that's what we're assuming is going on. Right? He's almost falling forward here, or he is. And you want to be able to, after you did that left kick, you want to be able to step forward. In a way, you're stepping through. But see, you don't want to let go of his arm. And that's different. We're talking about a body manipulation situation here. We're talking about controlling his arm. Yes, you can just hold the wrist and strike to his elbow and just injure his elbow. But you can also prolong this, which is very common in body manipulation situations, like wrist locks or arm bars and similar things, right? You might want to hold that position for a moment because it gives you control of your opponent. And you could, for example, push him further down to the ground, right? Well, if you want to hold that, you need to be in a position where your arms are comfortably able to reach what they have to reach. A twist stance allows you to do that here in this technique. Had you stepped through and turned, you would have to let go. You would have had to let go, right? So this allows you to change direction, move your body off in a different direction, while your arms are not changing. Your arms are locked in, or can be locked in the same position. And you're going to see later on in the two-man technique, this is very, very important to be aware of. It gives you freedom of footwork when your upper body is stuck, or when you simply want to have your upper body maintain the position it's in. Okay? And so if we look in the self-defense technique, what the twist stance provides us, so the first thing it does is it allows us to do something similar to a step through, right? It's not, it's a crossover, ending up in a twist stance, right? But it shares that characteristic with a step through. We're trying to get depth. We're trying to, go through his arm further, right? So it gives you that. It gives you depth of penetration in the dimension of depth. But it also allows you to drop down, right? A twist stance can be very low. And here it's very appropriate because your opponent is probably almost on the ground anyhow, and you want to be able to reach your opponent's arm without bending over, right? We want to maintain posture at all cost. So here you are able to follow your opponent down to the ground, keep your control on his arm if you wish, And you can strike forcefully by using marriage or gravity, as well as using the forward momentum you get from the crossover maneuver prior to the twist stance. Right? And you can reach. You can probably follow your opponent almost all the way down to the ground with this stance. You couldn't do that with a neutral bow stance. And in this technique, you might sometimes actually modify your twist stance because, like we mentioned a moment ago, you might want to follow your opponent down to the ground quite a ways. And the twist stance allows you to do that. But you would then have to modify it slightly and allow your rear knee to drop down towards the ground. Now, next we're going to find the twist stance on blue belt. And here it's used for what has been referred to by Mr. Parker as a subliminal retreat. You're making it look like you're retreating, but you're really not. You are moving part of your body out of the way. One good way to understand this is by comparing this blue belt technique that does that, the rear crossover with twist stance, and comparing that to the yellow belt technique that also was against the kick. Right? Because they both do something very similar. That's why it's good to compare these two techniques. Essentially, if you look at this yellow belt technique, part of making this work is the fact that when your opponent was kicking, you were moving back and away from the power of the kick. But right after you do that, you want to move back in. Right? So it's a very quick retreat followed by a very quick advance because you want to be able to strike your opponent right after he finished his kick. Right? That's not uncommon for kicking techniques. When you defend yourself against a kick, move back a little bit as you're blocking the kick, and while the person is busy trying to plant and land, and while he's still like busy catching his balance, you can already be in there, get back into his space basically, and strike. Right? That's not a bad tactic. So the yellow belt technique does that, but it steps back with a neutral bow and then shuffles forward, still using a neutral bow. This blue belt technique does it using a rear crossover ending up in a twist stance. And it's called a subliminal retreat because it makes it look to your opponent that you're retreating a whole lot more than what you actually are. And the reason why that is of value is because you can now come back in more rapidly. Right? When you're executing now your knife edge kick to your opponent behind you, to the back of your opponent's left leg, you can be there so much more rapidly because you never really move back all that much. But you get your vital targets out of the way. And again, this is a good example of how you're covering your groin, so the person can't kick you in the groin very easily. Right? So we can say that the twist stance provided us with a depth deception. We are tricking our opponent regarding how far away we are.